We are going to begin. My name is John Johnson, and I am so happy that people have decided to come in and listen and to experience this Pathways to Hope. Um, I am the program administrator for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And really, we wanted to come on and do this. This is our third year doing it, where we are going to be really talking about our journey. We have guests that are coming on that I'll introduce in a minute, and we're talking about faith and how it relates to our showing up in spaces, how we go about our lives and not necessarily talking about we will be talking about what we do, but we're also going to be talking about who we are, and that's going to be the basis of our discussion. Feel free to put things in the chat, and I want to introduce our executive director of NAMI, Queens Nassau, Liz Hildebrand, to talk a little bit and say a couple of words. Liz?
Good morning. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pathways to Hope event hosted by NAMI Queens Nassau here in New York. Across the people are joining us from across the country, as is their opportunity. And the strength of our event for Pathways to Hope is that it is a national event. And nationally, across the country, NAMIs offer very similar services. Here in Queens Nassau, we have Family to Family, which is an educational class about serious mental illness. We have support groups for peers, for caregivers, and we offer a safe place to talk about all those difficult things that one experiences in a mental health and wellness journey, all those challenges. And so NAMI is here to assure that you're never alone in that journey. So we have support groups, both virtual as well in person, pretty much every night of the week. We're always available. You can always call us and we'll help point you in the direction and receive so that you can find resources to help yourself or your loved one. So you're never alone with NAMI in that mental health and wellness journey. And Janice, VP on our board, is going to talk about our socialization programs.
Thank you, Liz. Hi, I'm Janice Garfinkel, and I'm the Vice President of NAMI Queens Nassau, and I'm also the Chair of our Educational Services. We are here to give support, end the stigma, and combat isolationism. We provide services for peers as well as their families, and in particular, my NAMI Queens socialization group comes on Mondays, evenings, and Fridays, where everybody is invited and we socialize and we have common goals and common ideas and just have a really, really good time. We also have peer support groups online, and we go to schools across Nassau and Queens giving our ETS presentation. ETS is Ending the Silence, and we talk to high schoolers and to middle schoolers about how to seek support when you are a high schooler or a middle schooler. We all know such a hard age, and a lot of people don't know where to go. So we tell them, we help them. Thank you, John.
All right. All right. Thank you, guys. And I think we have a couple other board members that will be tuning in. But I am really excited about introducing our guests. Today and tomorrow, we have a number of guests. We have three guests today, and we have three guests tomorrow. But I am happy to say that these are not only people who I admire and are colleagues, but they're also friends. Um, First, I'm going to just introduce, I'm not going to read any bios. Hopefully, you guys have read their bios, but they will be able to talk about what they do, who they are, and stuff like that. Rabbi Kogan is a returnee. He was on our first Pathways of Hope about 3 years ago, and backed by popular demand, Rabbi is going to share. I have a great new friend, Stephen, who I've met a couple of months ago. Stephen's going to be sharing his journey which is incredibly interesting. And lastly, my third guest, not in any order, is Adrian Adams, our city council person here in New York, who happens to be a very, very good friend of mine who we've grown up together. I promised her that I'm not going to tell any stories from when we were 6 years old and the nuns threw us out of class or anything like that. But so we're looking forward to it. So I'm going to be posing some questions, and the first question, I'm going to start it off. And the question is, uh, what is our why? What is the why? Why do we feel that this talking about mental wellness, mental health is important, and how our spirituality, our faith, our uh, belief systems kind of coincide, and I'm going to have our panelists answer it any way they want to. But I would like to begin and kind of talk about my why. Why am I doing this? Why do I think this is important? Um, as I said, my name is John, and I came to NAMI about 8 years ago. Um, Having lived with a diagnosis of bipolar that I lived with for years since I was 17 years old. And I was looking for a vehicle to kind of tell my story of overcoming and dealing with this diagnosis. And I always say that I live with the diagnosis. I don't suffer from. It's part of who I am, and I've been able to negotiate the symptoms and all that goes along with it pretty successfully. So I wanted to kind of come and give, especially to black and brown folks and black men, kind of an example of living with it and it not being a death sentence. So when I was 17 years old, I was pretty good student. I got accepted to several Ivy League school. I was a top basketball player in New York City, and did a lot of great things in school. I was captain of the basketball team, and one day I had a feeling of really paranoia, and in class uh, a teacher was berating my class, and I stood up in the middle of the room of the class, and I said, "Who the heck are you to be yelling at us?" Now everyone was kind of like, "Wow, that was something strange because that wasn't me," and I said, "You have no right to talk to us like that," and I said, and this was like the meanest teacher in the school, and I went to a school called Archbishop Malloy High School. And so I got up and I just walked out of the room and I went to the guidance department and I said, I'm leaving and I can't stand this and I'm just getting out. And I left there and came home. It was about 2:30 in the afternoon and I decided to go play basketball in the park. And I started having these extreme paranoid feelings that everyone in the park was talking about me and saying negative things. And the guys on the basketball court that were getting ready to play, they were talking about me. Although audibly I couldn't really hear what the girls on the handball courts were saying, but I felt that they were talking about it. And it was a weird, weird feeling. I didn't know what was happening. So I took my basketball, and in the middle of the game, I just walked out. And I heard people in the park saying, John, you know, what's happening? I just walked out. Well, that was the longest um, 10 blocks of my life on Murdoch Avenue in Hollis, O'Connell Park to 25th Street, and then St. Albans. And as I was walking, um, if a plane came by, I thought that everybody on the plane was looking at me. Or if someone was walking towards me, I felt that they were talking about me. Or if a car honked the horn. And so, needless to say, I was very confused and wondering what was happening. And I got home. I didn't say much. I went to bed, and Subsequently, I woke up in the morning in a comatose-like state, and my mother who comes in to wake us up. I have three brothers. They come in to wake us up, and as we didn't want to go to school, she woke us up, and although I had my eyes open, I couldn't move, and I could hear everything that's going on around me, but I couldn't move, and I started convulsing up and down, up and down, and of course, my family was like, "What's happening, John? What's going on?" And I couldn't talk. Well, that began, I guess really leaving school that day began my walk, my living with this diagnosis. And really quickly, for days I didn't talk, and my parents took me to different doctors, and they all were saying he's too far gone. He has to be institutionalized. I remember hearing my mother saying on a few occasions, "Oh hell no, we're not doing that." And but after the third day, I went to a doctor in the Gold Coast of Long Island, and he had all the notes, and he knew where I was in terms of, him getting all the notes from the other doctors. And he said, "John, I know exactly what you're going through." I hadn't talked now in 4 days, 3 days. And he says, "You have something called acute psychotic episode. Let me tell you some of the people who've had that." He said, "Leonardo da Vinci." And he said, um, uh, a number of historical figures. And I'm saying to myself, wow, okay, I'm in good company, but it still was very scary to my parents. Well, that began my treatment with medication and psychotherapy. And one day, after about day six, maybe, my brothers were playing ping pong downstairs, and I went downstairs, and the first words I said was, "I got next." And my brother runs upstairs. "Oh, John's talking," and that kind of was the beginning of me living with the diagnosis of bipolar. Fast forward, over the years, I've been pretty successful in negotiating um, the symptoms, but also I've had some serious bouts of some serious hospitalizations. I tried to commit suicide in my 20s. I also was arrested for allegedly assaulting a police officer when I was in a manic state. And of course, manic depression is bipolar, two poles, mania, and there's depression. So, long story short, there's a lot of things that have happened in that went along with my diagnosis and things that happened to me. But one thing that always remained when I was either in a psychotic state or when I was just normalized was my faith. I remember the first time I was hospitalized, um, I was at Creedmoor Psychiatric Center at 17 years old. And I remember being admitted and being a part of those people who were psychotic. And one thing that I did was I had prayer sessions with people where we prayed. And that was the only sane thing about me. And these are all the people that were around me. And I remember saying to myself, and through the years, that although I have this diagnosis and I have to negotiate, one thing that has never left me is my faith, in God, and the belief that um, I was going to be okay because I had someone that was looking out for me and my benefit. And we'll go on and I could talk more about my story, but I really just want to say that my belief, and I think that we all have beliefs that get us through the day, whether it's your faith, your religion, your how you go about your day, how about you go about being positive, and my faith in God. And I could go into a lot of other things, but I'm not because I really think I'm talking too much already. I really want to. I really want my guests to talk. So that's kind of my why. I decided to that I wanted to give back about 10 years ago and talk about my experiences, the good, the bad, the highs, the lows, and share with the community of folks throughout the city and throughout the country, and talk about living with this diagnosis and overcoming what is, I feel, mental illness that's not a death sentence. And I've been doing pretty good and leaving out a lot of stuff. But I just want to say that I'm so glad that I could freely and unabashedly talk about my faith and how God has taken me through this journey of living with this mental health diagnosis, and just part of my coping mechanism is my prayer and my prayer life. So that's really a quick synopsis. I speak all over the place, and I usually do a 2 hour seminar or an hour lecture, but that was 5 minutes of a quick overview. Getting to my panelists, I'm going to throw this out, and that is, what is your why? Why do you think that this forum, this is important to talk about mental wellness, mental health, and your spirituality, and anything that you want to talk about, your journey or anything. So I'll throw it out there, and who wants to jump in? I think, how about you, Rabbi? Why don't you talk a little bit about your journey and what you're doing and stuff like that?
Thank you, John, and thank you for sharing. And it's my pleasure to be here with you. I will talk about the why, I will talk about the journey, I will talk about everything, but I just like to say just 2 words about me. I am the rabbi of Hillcrest Jewish Center. This is my 20th year. It's a congregation in Queens. I am married, I have 3 children. I was born in Argentina, so Spanish is my first language. And my newest thing is that I joined the U.S. Army 3 years ago. So I am an American soldier. I am a chaplain in the U.S. Army. I'm a captain, which is a new challenge I took upon myself as a way to serve and to make a difference. Just a little about what's going on, in my daily life. My main occupation is being a rabbi of a synagogue, 275 families, and then the army is like a national guard is on the side, but it really spices my life, and I have my hobbies and things that I enjoy doing. So this is a little about just me in general. Okay, I am. But I like just to talk a little about the why. And I was thinking how to introduce this, John. And I like just to say that when people talk about, you know, we like to think about people being sick or being healthy in this dichotomy, like, you know, two poles. And I was thinking about my mother-in-law, who is in the hospital now, and she's 92 years old. She's not like completely sick, and she's not completely healthy. She's in between. And and most people, we can think about, or at least the way I think about when we talk about physical illness, uh, we can say either you were sick or you will be sick, or you go, at times you are sick. And it's not that you are or you are not. And I think that when it comes to mental illness, especially when people like to I would say stigmatize people, they like to say this is not who I am. I am not that person. I am outside of this conversation. And I like to look at myself and as all of us as being in a spectrum, in a range, where at times in our lives we are being challenged by mental illness, by anxiety, by depression, bipolar disorder, psychosis, schizophrenia. You can, but there is a spectrum. And I have been a rabbi in this congregation. Now people don't put it in the newsletter. I am dealing with depression. But they come and they talk to me, so I know. I just had, like a few minutes ago, someone in my office, this morning, and we have a conversation, and I say, it's a young person. I say, do you take medication? He says, yes, I take medication for anxiety since I am 8 years old. This is someone that doesn't work with the sign I deal with anxiety, but it's someone that I know. And the same way I realized that, the same happened to me and happened to members of my family and happens to members of the synagogue. So if you put everyone in that spectrum, then you can approach it as saying, this is where I am right now, and this is where my congregant will be tomorrow or was there before, and how can my synagogue be a place of embracing and welcoming. I can talk about faith also, John, but I like to talk maybe a little more about the institution, our synagogue, the place where we work, the place where people are, and how can this place, like in this case, my synagogue, how can be a place of embracing. I like just to say one more thing, and then I will leave it to other panelists because I like just to hear more. There is a crossing, which I think is important maybe for one day to talk also about, people talk about intersectionality. I don't like to talk too much because I think it's misused. But there is a crossing about mental illness, in many cases, and lack of power. There is a crossing where people who are suffering from mental illness, they don't have, in many cases, the financial power and political power and a coherent voice. We know that this is not true. We know that mental illness is all over the spectrum. There are rich people dealing with anxiety and poor people dealing with anxiety. There are smart people, with bipolar disorder and people that may not be so smart. But the way it comes, because the people who have more financial means, they may have a way to maybe to hide it or to go to different places and I think that where we can make a difference, I think, is when we can use the power that we have, either by virtue of our position, let's say I'm a rabbi, I'm a respected leader in my community, or financial power or political power, and we can use that place, what I would say the popularity, to advance a cause that will be beneficial for everyone else.
Wow.
And I think that this is where I think it's very important for religious leaders, for the pastor, for the rabbi, to use the pulpit. And this is something I have been using, to use the pulpit, to use the army, to use my rank, so to speak. I am a captain, and as a captain, I can tell you to all the soldiers there that we all deal with challenges. And that gives everyone else permission to feel that way. Or the rabbi is dealing with anxiety. The rabbi has been depressed. I feel better.
Wow, so many things, Rabbi, and we're gonna delve into a little bit more. But what you're saying is that one thing I'm getting at is that, first of all, everybody is dealing with some type of mental health issue, and I consider us all, everyone, to be overcomers in dealing with things that are happening to us that may not be beneficial, right? And we all have to deal with it. Now, we could talk about quote unquote serious mental illness, bipolar, schizophrenia, or we could talk about a kid who is nervous before he takes a test, and that's part of his mental wellness, his mental health. But we all deal with mental health, and we all have to deal with uh, those things that are happening that are challenging for us, right? And also just being a rabbi and having people and showing vulnerability that I too deal with it, and it's not like and you're not like pushing away and saying that, oh, that's you and it's not me. That's really helpful to hear that I could come to you and you're relatable and you could talk. So we'll talk more about that. So I'm gonna choose my good friend Adrian to talk a little bit about, as most of you know or may not know, but Adrian was a candidate for mayor of New York City, and she's also our city council speaker. And the things that she's dealt with, and that's what she does. But Adrian and I were talking about, that's what we do, but that's not who she is. And I know who she is. And I want you just to share whatever you want. I tell you, I might bring some things up, but I'll try not to. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. And it is my honor to be on this panel with all of you today and to be a part of this discussion. I'm Adrian, and I'll just preface this by whoever is watching from wherever. I happen to be the first Black speaker of the New York City Council, leading the first women majority and the most diverse city council in the city's history. And that's kind of a huge weight. So we're talking about mental capacity and mental wellness. It's very, very challenging to be in a seat like this, however humbling and the most amazing place that I've ever been in my life. Um, I am a mother, a wife, a grandmother. Um, and as quietly as it's kept, just became a great grandmother, John.
Ah.
Let's all keep that between us here in the four walls,
Uh,
because he's about a month old. Um,
wow.
yeah, I am married, mother of one, stepmother of three. And we became a blended family. And John knows this. We all went to school together with my husband, who we will, thank you so much, Bryce. Um, we will be married 36 years on the 31st of this month, John. So we are making history. Not
Amen.
just not
Amen.
just in our biological family, but in our St. Pascal's family also, because John and I have known each other since second grade, everybody. So that's how long we've been friends. And this journey has been amazing in just being a mom of four very quickly. I have watched my faith lead me um, in every space of my life, be it from my marriage and the person that I married, who marries a man who is taking care of three children. Who does that? My parents certainly thought I was, like, what are you doing? What is wrong with you? Um, you've got a lot going on here, I graduated from Spelman. I've got a degree in psychology and, hardworking, and needless to say, had it not been for the hand of God steering my life and not me steering my own, I would not be in the place that I am today. These many, many years later, and the capacity that I am, I have put myself nowhere. but have allowed myself to be placed through my faith, through the movement of my faith, and through the God that I serve, quite frankly. And I have truly, truly learned what those words, walk by faith and not by sight. I have lived that and had that experience. It's a very, very tough place to be in, to fully surrender yourself to your faith. And it is challenging, particularly when you have things coming at you that are not so pleasant and, quite frankly, tend to want to harm you. People that want to harm you and don't mean you any good, that tends to um, impact your thoughts, impact the way that you move, the thing that you do, the way that you speak, if you are not careful to lean into your faith. And I have been blessed enough to know what it means to lean into my faith, to protect me, to lead me and to move me. I have a daily prayer that I speak on a daily basis, and it's pretty much um, order my steps in your will and your way. Make me the best me that I can be on this beautiful, blessed day, not for my glory, but for your glory and for the edification of your people.
Amen.
And I move by that every single morning. If I didn't have that, those words, oh, I just got to chill. Thank you. If I didn't have that and the meaning, the root that has within me, I would be totally scattered, moving about. I lead a body of 50 council members throughout 50 districts within a city of over 8 million people. So all of those concerns are my concerns. Those needs of those districts are my needs as well. And so this move and this journey doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people. And as a council member, almost 8 years ago, I was elected in 2017 to lead District 28 in Queens, the first woman to be a council member for District 28 in Queens. The first time that I walked into city council chambers, my spirit said, "Welcome home." That's was the turning point in my life. I had been in corporate America for almost 2 decades prior to becoming a public servant. I was in the private sector as a corporate trainer, using those skills. That's the way my husband and I worked and worked and worked for our 4 children for those years until we became an empty nest. And something said, just rest, take a break. And I took a time out. And at that point, and I'm going backwards, so forgive me. But I took a break from my life in corporate America and tried to figure out, after raising 4 children, what is it that what's my purpose? And I think there comes a time when all of our lives that many of us ask, why are we here? What are we here to do? I had been working and working and working um, to make sure that our children were provided for, to make sure that we had a good home and food was on the table and our children didn't want for anything and all those great things. But what was I here to do? I was teaching executives, white collar executives who are making a whole lot more money than I will ever see in a lifetime, by the way. But I was training them to be their best, yet I wasn't living my best. So what am I here for, God? What am I here for? So I had what some would consider to be, in the old school, they call it a valley experience, where you just take a time out and the Spirit just leads you into a place just to commune for a while and get connected and try to feel what it is that the Spirit, your faith, is telling you to do. That's what I needed in my life, to stop and figure it out. And at one point, after almost 2 years of being in that valley experience, something said, plug into your community. I plugged into my community. I became a member of my local community board. And there is where I found my purpose in service. Became a member of my community board, was appointed to become education chair of that community board, plugged into my school districts in Southeast Queens and realized the inequities within those school systems and realized that there was something that I needed to do to help our children. Was in the midst of raising 4 children. What am I doing for the children in the community that need me? What can I do for them to help their life experiences? And so I plugged into that. I became vocal and an advocate for the children in our schools, really across the city, because there were some that wanted to close our schools, considering our children of color to be failures. And there was one thing that I knew is that our children will never be deemed failures. Children that look like me will never be deemed as failures if I have anything to do about it or say about it. And that became my thing to take on. And I ended up, I guess, getting some notoriety for being a big mouth in Southeast Queens. And
Which you always were, by the way. No.
no, I wasn't. No, I wasn't.
You weren't.
I
You
don't
weren't.
want to. Nope, nope. I
At
was
all.
not
Not
at
at
all.
all.
I was very shy with very low self-esteem when we were growing up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I would go there, but for some reason I'm going
It
here.
was me that was the big mouth. You knew
You
that.
were, yes, you were.
Okay.
Yes, you were. John
Okay.
was very popular. Got it. So yeah, so I became that advocate for children. And people started seeing things that I didn't see in myself. Local elected officials started seeing things that I never saw in myself because, as I just said, I had very low self-esteem as a child. It wasn't until high school that I started coming out of this cocoon that I was in as a child. I was bullied very, very, very badly in elementary school, and I started to realize my self-worth in high school and then in college, and just realized that I have some things to say. It's not a bad thing to open your mouth and kind of speak those things. So I started doing that. But when I became vocal in my community, people started taking note of that, and I was elevated to become chairperson of the second largest community board in the borough of Queens, and that's where things really started to move. There came a time where there was an opening for city council member for District 28, and people encouraged me to run for the seat. And I said, no way, no how, never. I am not a politician because I hate politics. I hate politicians, and I will never be one of them. I admire their work and those that have the stamina and the guts to do that, but that's not me. Nope, 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 that's not me. I'll just sit back in my little volunteer space right now and just do what I'm here to do. But lo and behold, there was a plan that I had no idea what that plan was. I started walking by faith and not by sight, and leaned into my faith and trusted it, and ran for that seat, and was elected overwhelmingly for that seat in leadership for District 28. And as I fast forward back to the first time I walked into City Hall chambers, into the chambers that I now call my house, my home, that I lead everybody into the people's house on the other side of City Hall in co-equal governance with the mayor of New York City. My spirit said, welcome home. There I knew my life was to be in public service one way or another. And here I am right now, speaking to all of you, still spiritually living my best life, looking forward to the days ahead because um, I have trusted the one that I have always been able to depend on, and that is the spirit within me, the spirit that is given to me, the light that shines through me, the light that I am so blessed to share with so many people. I open my mouth in public spaces and I don't know what I am to say. I have people to write speeches for me. Most of the time, I close the book and just speak those things that I am given to speak. People will say, where did you get that from? How did you know that? And I'm total, I don't know. I don't know. I just said what God told me to say. I don't know. And I trust that. I believe that. And I move on that. And God willing, I will continue to move as His Spirit leads me to move. And that is in the space of love. In spite of misrepresentation in a lot of spaces, and that's a hard place to be. And that's where we talk about our mental health. And that's where we talk about how do we preserve our mental health. For me, how do I preserve my mental health when people say horrible things about me on social media? Every second, every moment, as we are speaking today, people are saying crazy things about me right now. And I don't use the word crazy to be disparaging. I'm using it
I
to
don't
be
know.
facetious.
We get it. We get it.
Okay. People are saying very crazy, very harmful things, about me. And I look at it and it is very hurtful. It could have the capacity to damage me greatly, to damage my self-esteem, places that I have fought to come out of, dark places that I have fought to come out of throughout my lifetime, throughout my history, throughout my childhood, adolescent, and life as an adult. But I have chosen this thing called faith to lean on in times of trouble, to lean on in times of darkness, despair, and depression. Because yes, we all get depressed. I get depressed. I've recently faced some health challenges over the past month or so that I'm saying I don't like not feeling 100% in this body. That can take you down. And say, if I am not at full capacity physically, I I'm not used to feeling not 100%. Thankfully, I'm just about feeling 100% again, everybody. So I'm very grateful for that. But we all experience it. We are not alone. We have each other to hold on to as brothers and sisters, as people who walk on this earth in this journey. We know that we are but human bodies having a spiritual experience. Let's all hold on to each other and let's all hold on to our faith.
Amen. And you are preaching good, my sister. And it is so amazing for me and you and I to watch our progression, our growth over
Our
the years
journey.
and our journey, right? And watching you, I know over the years, I would call, especially over the past year, I would call Adrian not to talk about what she's doing, where she's speaking next, or but just to say, "How are you doing, Adrian?
Yeah.
How you doing?" And she would always say, I always say, "Get your rest," and she was doing those things, and we always talk about God and how He's taking us through our journey. And thank you so for being so uplifting, but as well as transparent. We people know the Adrian that does incredible things for New York City and will continue to do political things, but it's her warmth, her her total just openness and honesty that has always been a part of Adrian. So I thank you for sharing, and we're gonna get into some other things about our growing up at our Catholic schools and what happened and our belief systems. So thank you very much. So my man, Stephen A. King, and Stephen made a joke about he is the original Stephen King, right? And wishes that he had that Stephen A. King's bankroll,
Thank you, Ken. Thank
bank account, right? But heard about Stephen, met Stephen months ago, and was just taken back by his journey and his and all the things that he does. He's a fellow New Yorker, right? Another New Yorker and a ball player. I think I would have busted you up back in the day. I'm a little older than you, but anyway. But it's so good to have you agree to share a little bit about your life and your faith. And so take it away.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And thank you, first of all, you, Liz, Janice. Uh, I have to definitely honor Don Brown, who plugged us together.
Yes.
And just for what you all are doing, thank you to my co-panelists. I'm in real good company on this panel. And I am Stephen Anthony King, inspirational author, motivational speaker, a workshop facilitator. I do workshops in the New York City public schools on social emotional learning. Married now 18 years Want to make sure I get it right so I don't
Sure,
get
you
in
sure?
trouble. Father of three, grandfather of two. And I'll talk a little bit about my journey and then I'll get into, I guess the initial question was, what's my why? Why am I doing this? So born and raised in Harlem, on 144th Street between 7th and Lenox Avenue. Born severely nearsighted. Got teased a lot because I wore thick glasses. I was listening uh, to Adrian talk about being bullied in school, and I can identify with that. And people don't really understand the impact that bullying has on you. It demolishes your self-esteem. And because of that, it led me into drug addiction, you know, to escape the pain. My mother was the best mother in the world. She did the best she could. She just wasn't one of those nurturing mothers. So after a day of getting bullied in school, I would want to come home and get patched up. And she just didn't know how to give me that affection. So I was searching for an escape, and my first escape was G.I. Joe. You probably remember G.I. Joe with the male pattern baldness, right? And the kung fu grip, and the fingers would come off.
Right.
Even though I lived on 144th Street, when I came home, I grabbed my G.I. Joe and I was off in Africa saving the world. I was the hero at that point, and it allowed me to escape from, the trauma that is bullying. And we can get into that a little bit later. Graduated from the escape of GI Joe into drugs and went on an 18-year run with a cocaine addiction. Thankfully, now I have 27 and a half years clean from drugs. So I'm grateful for that. Again, my eye challenges my entire life, born severely nearsighted, had my first eye surgery when I was just 7, had 3 more by the time I was 16, lost sight in my eye shortly after college. I played college ball, got elbowed in the eye, and lost sight in my right eye. If we fast forward to 2016, I had a total of 10 eye operations and only had sight in my left eye. And in 2017 to 2018, I had 4 more serious surgeries, suffered temporary blindness and the threat of permanent blindness.
Mm.
And so that's a little bit of background. And you can imagine, mental challenges are an equal opportunity offender. And I'm glad you guys mentioned that a little bit earlier. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how much money you don't, black, white, Chinese, whatever your ethnic background, whatever your religious background, we all suffer from some type of mental challenge. And, as I share that story, there was a lot of depression in there, a lot of anxiety, a lot of low self-esteem, a lot of low self-worth that caused more depression. And coming up in Harlem, raised in Harlem or raised in Hollis, these are pretty tough neighborhoods. You know, you can't tell somebody I'm not okay. You become the Vic. So you got to wear this mask, like everything's okay, and we suffer in silence. And the short answer to my why is I owe. I have survived 100% of my worst days. Everything that I've gone through that I thought I'd never get through, I'm not going through now. And I'm grateful. And I've learned that being grateful is not just uh, giving thanks, it's giving back. And my why is kind of layered because obviously there's the point of service. I believe one of the panelists had mentioned, you ask, like, why am I here? We often ask, who am I? Why not ask, why am I? And you get to a point where you reflect on life and you see that you've gone through all these challenges. They've actually made me stronger, but not just for myself. There's a saying, um, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. I like to take that a step further. Things don't just happen to you, they happen for you to help others. And for the last 4 surgeries that I had in 2017, 2018, to me, they were the most severe. and had the most potential consequence, that when I came out of that and the doctor said, Steve, I think we finally got you out the woods. I was so overwhelmed with grateful emotion and just gratitude. I knew I couldn't share or keep the story to myself, and I had to share it with the world. I didn't know how right then and there, but eventually I realized that I was going to write a book. And the title of the book is called It's Really Good to See You. Because when I say it's really good to see you, it's not just a polite greeting after
Amen.
14 surgeries and temporary blindness and the threat of permanent blindness. I mean, it's really good to see you.
Yeah.
And it kind of sparked, I've always my friends used to say, I never met a mic I didn't like. So and you probably remember this, DJ, and some on the call may remember Ken Spider Webb on WBLS in the 70s. I wrote
Yes.
a letter to Ken Spider Webb when I was like about 7 years old, telling him that I wanted to be like him when I grew up. And he actually read the letter on air. I never forget, I was getting dressed for school. And my mother told me that he was reading my letter. So becoming a public speaker, a motivational, inspirational speaker, forgive the background noise, they're outside my windows, power washing. But being in that realm has always been my passion. And things just came together. I truly believe that when you're walking in alignment, things start to come together. And I was introduced to NAMI through Dawn Brown uh, with Les Brown. I was the executive producer of a fundraiser for NAMI, and we collaborated with Les Brown, and it sparked something in me because I was able to see Les Brown go through some challenges with one of his family members with similar issues, diagnosis as yours. And I saw the impact that it had on his family member, but I was part of his leadership team, and I was able to see the impact on him, and how mental illness impacts the family members. I have my own personal experience with that, with my own family members. You feel helpless. You don't know what to do. You're frightened. You somehow you take on the guilt that it's your fault. And I knew that I had to get the word out there that A, you're not alone, the NAMI mantra, and and kind of bring this message, especially to underserved communities. Because, me growing up, I always used to think that, mental illness was the homeless person walking around with no shoes on, talking to himself. And it's so much more than that. It is the anxiety. It is the depression. And depression is not always under the covers with the shades down, not eating. There's situational depression. We can walk around being depressed and not even know it. So, one of my favorite mantras is, your purpose is often disguised as your pain. And I'm going back to my why. And I've learned that everything that I thought was the worst thing for me was what was once my kryptonite is now my superpower. And what was meant to harm me, I now use to help not just myself, help others. And and that's the other layer of it, that to a degree it is self-serving, because we all get on that pity pot. Why me? Why did this happen to me? And when I'm able to help somebody, John, I chased a lot of things in my life, right? Looking for fulfillment, the money, the property, the prestige, and acquired it to a degree, and it just never gives me the feeling, nothing gives me the feeling of fulfillment when I can just help somebody just because I'm in position to help somebody. So it's my driving force, and still today, there are days where I don't feel like getting up because the weight of the world just seems so heavy. But knowing that I may be able to help somebody, and it may sound corny, but it's my corny and it's my truth,
Mhm.
knowing that I can possibly help somebody with my story or stories is the fuel that gets me up and keeps me going. And as mentioned, I believe that that's the way it's created. The feeling that you get when you're just able to help somebody is the feeling that we chase because society tells us this is what happiness is. And for me, happiness is just being able to help another human being based on my experiences.
Wow.
So, in short, that's my why.
Wow. I'm ready to get up and run around the block and do some weights between Adrian and Rabbi and you guys. Great, great. Thank you again for all you guys being transparent and being vulnerable and being able to say, you know, it's okay to not be okay,
Right.
right? And I think that that's important for us. You know, people have this, especially men. You know, we have this. We can't show that we're hurting. We can't show that any vulnerability. We got to be tough and man up and all that. And the fact that you, Rabbi, and Adrian, all willing to say, you know, me too. You
Me
know,
too.
me too. We're dealing with. I know that. You know, whenever I speak uh, to people, whether it be large groups, small groups, you know, two of the reactions that I get is one is, wow, you have mental illness, you have bipolar, and you've been so successful. You know, that image that you were talking about of the guy, you know, talking to himself on the street, or the guy in Columbine who shot everybody. Those are the images of mental illness, right? Those are the images and not the images of everyday people who are overcoming things, right? So
Right.
that's a fact. Oh, you've been so like you're not supposed to be like if you live with a mental illness, serious mental illness, or if you live or you're going through some struggles that you can't be successful. But the other more pertinent, prominent message that people always give me is me too, my
Hmm.
mother, my uncle, my cousin, my friend. I think mental illness and what we go through as humans is universal. And the fact that we all have a spirit of giving back and saying, you know, well, hey, you know, I've been there and maybe I can help you. And that's some of the reasons why I picked you guys on the panel because I knew that that was going to be the theme. Question, you guys. Um, how does your uh, being, your who you are, impact younger folks? And as someone who was young, what did you need? What did you look for in someone to help you? If anybody could answer that in any way.
I
Rabbi,
looked I looked for someone
Adrian?
that, yeah, to identify,
Hmm.
you know, with the things that I was going through. But the problem with that, you know, for me, you know, candidly speaking, was that I was so self-conscious that nobody really knew what I was going through. I wasn't sharing that, you know, at a young age. I wasn't sharing, you know, that I didn't like myself. I wasn't sharing, you know, that, you know, Stephen mentioned being bullied, you know, and expanding on that. That's a horrible, it's a horrible trauma, you know, that it leaves on a youngster. And when I mention it, you know, in older age, people were like, what? You, John, even you know, you didn't know. And we were in the same classes
Yeah,
together. You knew a little
sure.
bit. But you didn't
No,
know,
no, right.
how serious it was.
Yeah.
You know, in the third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, you know, all through those of years that we're supposed to be nurtured in school. And that peer pressure and feeling like an outsider and trying to force your way from the outside inside and playing that you're really on the inside, but knowing that you're really on the outside for reasons unbeknownst to you. So if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that's very, very traumatic. And so in looking for or finding, you know, models that could help or identify. My mom was the only one. You know, my parents were the only one that truly knew, you know, what, but there was but so much. that a parent can do. What's she going to do? Walk me to school? We all walked to school by ourselves or with our siblings back in the day. Our parents worked, so they weren't going to walk to school with us. So it was very, very difficult to, bring in people that understood what we were going through because those things were very private. They were very painful. I was 12 years old and I didn't want to live anymore. I told my mom one day I came in from school, I says, I'm going to jump in front of a car and kill myself.
Wow.
And my mother looked at me. She says, what did you say? And I said, Mommy, I can't go back to school. I can't do this anymore. I can't take it. I just can't take it. I'm going to, I'm going to walk out. I'm going to jump in front of a car and I'm going to kill myself because if no one else likes me or wants to be around me, then I hate myself.
Mm.
And that turned into, oh, Mardell says he was 13 years old. I was 12, 11, 12. That turned into self-abuse. These days coming in, and I'm going to I've never shared this before publicly. That turns in as an adolescent. These days, it turns into children that cut themselves, turns into children that burn themselves. For me, I tended to bite my arm. Yeah. So, when I would get that angry, so upset,
Oh, you
was
froze.
hated so much. How could I love myself when I felt that people hated me? So, that's what I did as a coping mechanism. It's very traumatic and it took a long time. I had no therapy. I had no nothing because those things were very private. So that's where faith came in as an older, and growing up.
Wow, Adrian, and you're right. I didn't know the depth, right?
No.
And again, when I come out, Adrian said I was popular, whatever. Um, growing up, being pretty successful as a kid, and being number one in the class and Ivy League school,
Class president.
class. And oh, by the way, Adrian was my campaign manager for running for class, and I won because of her.
He did.
How
But
about that? How about that, huh?
growing up opposite. I wasn't necessarily bullied. I was helping those people who were bullied. But what happened with me was just, people having expectations of excellence. I remember, Adrian, I went back to a school reunion. And there's 25 of us on this thread who were in elementary school together. And we hadn't been together in a while. I went back the St. Pascal's reunion. And the first thing someone said to me is, John, I thought you were going to be somebody. So
Ooh.
now I was like taken aback. I could have, smacked him in the face, but I said, no, no. And I said, well, I am somebody. You have no idea. But he had no idea what I've been through in my life. But he and others had expectations of John, you're going to be a pro basketball player. John, you're going to be a politician. You're going to be president. And so growing up with all those pressures of, these expectations and he's like, oh, you're John Johnson. You have to perform. And along with the chemical imbalance, I finally broke and I snapped and I couldn't navigate. I didn't. And sometimes when I was doing good things, I had my mother, my father, and my brother who wanted to keep me humble. They were like, "Oh, John, just." I came in with a most valuable player trophy, and they would say, "Oh, go take out the garbage." So I started getting confused about what's good, what's not, and all those things, right? So although I was elevated, and I guess that's a good thing that people thought good things about me and not bad things, but it still was pressure and a lot of things. So that added to my psychosocial aspect of my disease, but also just kind of now looking back, I kind of understood where some of my angst came from. So Rabbi, you want to speak to that at all?
Yes. Let me just say something, John, before I forget, because
Sure.
I think for me the richness of this panel is not just talking to everyone who is here, but for me it's just getting to share this panel with, in this case, with Adrian and Stephen and all of you. I like to say, Adrian, before I forget, that when I am a great grandfather, I want to look like you. That's my. If I don't say that, that's. I just feel
Thank you,
like,
Rabbi.
yeah, wow. You need to share these genes with all of us.
Black don't crack. But anyway, go ahead.
I think that this is the richness of what we can do for everyone who is in this, listening to us, is sharing our stories and see how we can uh, we can help. But I just want to talk about Stephen, about something that you just said, because I have some congregants of mine listening here today, and they may hear that this phrase. I am going to make it my own. I would say mantra. Uh, your purpose is often disguised as your pain. I say by Stephen King, but maybe I will make it by Manes Kogan. And I think it's such a powerful statement, because one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves and for people around us is to help them find purpose in life.
Yes.
And Viktor Frankl wrote in Man in Search of Meaning how purpose is something that can take people from the dark place where they are and bring them to a place of light. And the question that we were asking ourselves, who am I? What is my purpose here? Is the same questions that people in our communities of faith are asking. And I think there is Rabbi. I think I have her in the chat here. Rabbi Marcel Hall says our communities and places of worship can act as a safe place to support for those who are struggling with mental illness. And I'd like just to add to what you are saying, Rabbi, that our places, our communities are a laboratory. It's a place where people can both show who they are, but also find purpose in helping other people, in helping people navigate their struggles. And I think if you can take someone and take their pain and transform that into purpose, Stephen, that is a wonderful gift that you can give to another human being, and we can do it in our places. I like just to say something that I say before, because it's really getting to me in this conversation. I think that we need to be intentional in what we do, not just to do it, but also know that there is a purpose in how we do things. And I like just to say the following. There is power. There is who are the people who the rest of the world, maybe not me, but the rest of the world admires, are people who are influenced. These are the influencers. How many likes you have, how many people like you, how many followers you have in Instagram. Influence is a very important thing in our community, and I'm sure it's very important for us as well somehow. For many people, money is important. We don't like to talk about that, but let's face it, people look at money as a source of power. So if we take about influence, if we talk about money, if we talk about position of power, people who are well known in politics, I say we need to take these people who are in our communities, in our congregations, and ask them or engage them to use their influence and their power and their money to bring the message outside. Because if I am followed by 3 people or by 5 people who love what I'm saying, I will be able to maybe make a difference for these 5 people. But if Stephen is is followed by 20,000 people, then you have 20,000 people who are looking at you, Stephen, and he says, wow, this is a successful person. It's someone I like to be like him. And he is talking about this. I'm just imagining. I'm going just to throw something here to you. Imagine if someone like Taylor Swift were to come forward and say, "I am struggling with depression, and you can get help too. I got help, and you can get help too." Imagine what we'll do for millions of followers. Now, this is something I cannot do. I can do it for Mrs. Goldstein in my congregation, and that's good. But I'm just saying it's very important. That's why I think it's important that we engage families of people dealing with mental illness. People like we say, Rabbi, let me talk to you as a mother of someone who was struggling. And I say, let's use our place of power and influence in our communities to make a difference. And I know when the rabbi speaks, the rabbi is speaking and people listening because of my position. So instead of saying, I am nothing, I'm just a human being, I say, no, I am a rabbi and I am speaking from a position of power that someone else put me there, gave me. So I'm going to use my place in the community with other rabbis in my congregation, in the army, to make a difference. But I need to be intentional. That means I need to be mindful of the power that I have. And I think the same goes about, Adrian, in the city council. Yes, you come from a story of pain and bullying, but right now you are in a position where people need you and need your favors, and that's something that you can use to make a difference.
Wow.
And I say we need to be mindful of the power that we have to make a difference. That's
Well, that's
the
great.
takeaway from this conversation from me.
No, no. That's great, Rabbi. I mean, I've had the opportunity to meet some quote unquote celebrities that are now kind of coming out of the closet. One person is a guy named Meta World Peace, who was his name was formerly Ron Artest, who was a great basketball player, one of Kobe Bryant's good friends, and won the championship for the Lakers years ago. And so when talking with him, or when seeing him on TV, when they won the championship, he was being interviewed, and the commentator asked him, "So, what do you attribute your success to?" And he says, "Well, first I want to thank my psychiatrist." And I was like, all right. And so him coming out saying that he's going to see a psychiatrist, so many people are like, what? Meta? And he's a tough guy from the
Because
hood and all that.
John, it gives permission
Absolutely.
other people to seek help. So you
Absolutely.
say that it gives permission. If he's doing that, wow, Rabbi, if you can see a psychotherapist, I guess I can see it. If you need help, Rabbi, I can get some help too.
Absolutely. And so just, being with him and walking around Queensbridge housing projects, right? The largest housing projects in the country, and his notoriety and the way they, walking in the neighborhood and him saying, hey, this is what I'm going through. And the kids, he's like the Pied Piper of Queensbridge, right? But and several other celebrities who are now coming. We know that Mariah Carey lives with bipolar disorder. Now she's speaking about it. We all know about Kanye West, right? But anyway, that's another story. But as we identify with folks who are showing vulnerability and saying, well, then people could now say, well, you know what? I could get some help too, and I'm not afraid. Try to kill that stigma, right? That stigma of, oh my gosh, I don't want anybody to know. When you find out that, some of the most celebrated people are dealing with issues, and as we give and as we share, we find out that it's more common than not. Stevie, you want
Will you allow me just to say one
Sure,
thing?
please, go ahead.
Because I see a conversation in the chat, and that would be, I will promise to stay silent
Go
after
ahead.
that
Do your thing.
2 minutes. But this conversation is about faith, and someone is asking where is the faith element, or and I'd like just to bring something from Judaism, which I'm sure is similar in other religions, and that is the idea, the deep belief that we are created in the image of God.
Yes.
That
Yes.
God, so to speak, whoever God is for you, He planted within us, so to speak, a piece of Him. We call it our soul. You can name it differently. But each of us, regardless of how we look from outside or the issues that we are struggling with, we have a piece of God within us. We are created. God, each of us is special, not because each one is special because we share this communality in God. God is like we are made somehow inside from the same fabric. So when someone comes and says to me, Rabbi, I don't feel special, I feel down, I always, in addition to using power and using my role and using everything that I mentioned I also can go to that part of the conversation and say, let's see what you and I have in common. You and I have in common that part, that we are made with the same divine material that makes us special. You might not be able to see that right now because you are in a dark place. And hopefully we will be able to help, or we will help each other to get from this darkness to light. But don't get confused. Inside you, and this is a message we need to say to everyone that needs help, inside of you, you have this special point that nothing can take away from you. This is something that makes you unique, makes you who you are. The same way I tell my children, you are a special person. I know you don't feel special today because you are in a dark place, because maybe you did something bad, because doesn't matter. In God's forgiveness, in God's love, you are very, very special there. And we are able to take that light, that little, not everyone can do it, but hopefully, we have some gifts that we can use, and to take that light that is inside and make it shine outside. And that it takes some training, some motivational speakers, some power, all that. But the essence is that we have this special place inside us, each of us. And when I need to train the eye of my congregants to see that light in the person sitting across the aisle. They don't see it right now. This is where the synagogue can be helpful. I will try to help you so you can see that. So you can see the light of someone who is different than you, who votes different than you, who has a different color in their skin, a different religion, and who is struggling with mental illness. And you will see how that person shares the same light as you do. And
Amen.
we will make it shine.
So, Steve, let me ask you, Steve. I think that about faith and spirituality and belief systems, that we are all have a void in our lives. There's something that everybody's always looking for purpose and looking for happiness and all that. And my belief is that that's where uh, the spirituality. That's where my God comes in. That's where I found that He's saying to me, John, I'm that. I'm the one that you are looking for, and that's that void and things that you're going through. And so I've always led that and said, you know what? My faith, and I don't necessarily have to wear my faith on my sleeve and talk about it all the time, but I know that that void is filled. And although it sometimes it's drained, and I know that I leave him, but he doesn't leave me. I believe that. So speak to something like that, Steve, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, John, and thank you for before I do anything.
Sure.
I must humbly apologize to one of my panelists for not addressing her properly. I spoke earlier, and I spoke to Adrian, and she's put in a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and she should be addressed properly. Madam Speaker, Councilwoman.
Amen.
No,
Adrian to
listen.
you, Stephen.
Okay, but I needed to let them know,
Yeah, I
you
hear
put in
you.
a lot of hard work,
You better ask somebody, you
and
know?
that's the pride coming out in me, because when one wins, we all win.
Oh,
So thank you for your hard
bless you.
work, dedication, as well to you, Rabbi. Um, and John, I will speak to the spirituality, but again, just to bring it back for the audience who may have lost sight of the initial question about the youth, can you just repeat that for me?
Just like who as a youth would you have liked to have looked up to or did look up to and say, you know what? I like his Kool-Aid. I want to be like him. And as an adult, do you feel, and I'm sure you do, the need to be a light, like Rabbi was saying, and to be an example. That's kind of so.
Correct. So I wanted to bring that back because I think it's important from two uh, standpoints. I've always been an advocate for the youth. I mentored an Abyssinian Baptist church with the Blue Nile rites of passage. The late great Reverend Butts uh, was kind of one of my heroes, and they have a mentoring program. When I was in prison upstate, I was mentoring the youth. Our children, our young men, our young women are crying out for guidance. And I'm going to say this from my own personal experience. It is not okay to get a measure of success in this life and not reach back. And you don't have to reach back to a whole football team. If you just grab one person, if everybody who is in a position, and I believe to some degree we are all in a position, grab one youngster, as the rabbi mentioned before, you grab that one and impact that one. You don't know the impact, the thousands that one may have impact on others, right? That's what I'll say. And working on a continuous basis in the New York City public schools with the high school young men, I see it. I'm what they call on the front lines. And what they are looking for, and you mentioned it, John, is vulnerability. I can't go in there with a suit and tie on and talk proper. That's not what they know. And to them, that's not achievable. So I come in, I bring my state green. I still got my visit shirt. You keep a crispy one for visits, right? So it's crispy green. It looks brand new. It has my name and my number on it, and I show it to them. They can relate to this, not so much as a badge of honor, right? But I have a workshop called Responsible Decision Making, and I talk about consequences and results of every decision you make. And when I hold that shirt up, I said, this was the result of an irresponsible decision. They lean in. I show a picture, right? I have a workshop on mental wellness and self-esteem. And I show them a picture of me. It's all broken up and taped together. 7 years old in the Drew Hamilton projects in Harlem, sitting there with my friend with these thick, thick glasses on. I know it was old because they still had the velvet black light posters on the
This
wall,
poster.
right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Remember the Panther and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
right? So when I show them I am you, right? Because the thing in their mind is these adults don't know what I'm going through. And I let them know I do know what you're going through. I talked to them about hitting my stepfather, my alcoholic stepfather, in the head with a bat 3 times because I know that they're experiencing domestic violence and abuse in their homes. So when I'm able to give them a story, a personal story, not a textbook, not a keynote speech, right? But when I'm able to strip naked and take off the mask, they lean in. They lean in. And these kids are sharp today. They know the difference of someone who cares and someone who's just there to get a check and fill a quota. Because they tell me, I walk through the hallways. I can't walk down the hallway without them stopping me and saying, yo, you the realest dude we know, Mr. King, right? Because I try to be the realest dude they know. It's not an
Mhm.
act. And all I'm doing is sharing my story and letting them know there is hope, even in these circumstances. So I just wanted to talk about that. And again, to all our listeners, just grab one. There's one in your neighborhood. You know, whatever your capacity is, take it on. And I tell you, there is no gratification or fulfillment like being able to help somebody, especially a youngster. And you don't understand the generational impact that you could be starting. You really don't, you know.
Yeah.
Through the spirituality part, I'm in a 12-step program, and it was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. Because in a 12-step program, they leave room for all uh, belief of a higher power, you know, uh, because everybody wasn't brought up the same way. Some people have issues, right? The word God, sometimes we just use it as good, orderly direction. There is no religious kind of instruction in a 12-step program. And it was the best thing for me, right? Because I just call it the source of all that is, right? It's the source of everything. And I believe what the rabbi said, that I am a part of that source. I am created in that image and likeness, certainly, right? And what I would share to everyone on this call is that you must seek. You don't want to just go through life making a living. You want to make a life that's worth living.
Mm.
There's a huge difference. I tell you, I chased a lot of things. There are a lot of distractions in this world. There are a lot of bright, shiny objects that we are programmed to believe is success. And we chase them to the point where we will compromise our principles, our morals, our values. The OJ said it best, in a song, the love of money is the root, right? And what I've learned is that spiritual principles, true spiritual principles, are never in conflict, right? Whether you're Jewish, Catholic, Baptist, forgiveness is forgiveness. And the natural byproduct of every true spiritual principle is harmony.
Mm.
And I would challenge anybody to tell me different. If you practice a true spiritual principle, and if you have nothing else to hold on to spiritual principles, forgiveness, honesty, love, compassion, empathy. These were the teachings of Jesus. So whether Jesus really lived or not, to me, is not of that significance, but how he lived and the model of his life, I believe, is what the message was. This is how you should live. You should treat your neighbor the way you want to be treated, and you won't have conflict. But in order to do that for me, you have to seek a higher level of consciousness.
Mm. Mm. You preaching good. You preaching good.
Consciously seek
Hmm.
a higher level of consciousness, communication with God, with that source, with all that is, right? Like, and you will find it if you seek it. Because I do believe that that source is omnipresent. It's everywhere. And when you're in conscious contact, you can feel it just in passing, right? Just in a commercial, just in a song. We all get those hits. We all get those what I like to call spiritual downloads. But for me, you have to be intentional. And for me, I have to be intentional first thing in the morning with meditation, quiet in my mind, not picking up my phone first thing. Definitely not watching the news because you know that news will drive me with 27 years clean to go get a hit real quick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, man?
Yeah.
Every story is just death, destruction. Like, no, I have a choice. And what people don't realize is one of the most powerful gifts we have is the gift of choice. I can choose to turn off the television and listen to something motivating. Read a book that talks about spirituality, right? I don't have to turn on, especially this thing right here, man. This thing is a weapon of mass distraction, a complete weapon of mass distraction. But it could be the gift or the curse.
Absolutely.
And again, the choice is yours. It's the most
Amen.
powerful
Stephen,
weapon we have.
try needing to use two of them at once.
Oh my God.
Just saying, welcome to my world.
I tell
Madam
you.
Speaker, I'm gonna speak over you in tongues for protection.
Amen. Amen.
I tell you, Steve, I think that living with this diagnosis of bipolar, I've had to find ways of coping, like we all do, right? Coping with our world, coping with our struggles, and part of my coping mechanism, as I said, was my prayer life, and believing that God has not forsaken me, right? And that I am here, as you spoke about purpose, Adrian. You guys spoke about purpose, and I'm here, and I think that what's happening in my life, and I've been able to realize that what the gifts, the talents, the abilities that God has given me, and also what could be deemed as a struggle, like living with a diagnosis of bipolar, are things that are could glorify God and glorify Him and give back to people who may not have those same abilities that I might have and may not be able to articulate some of the things and be a voice for those who are voiceless, right? And some of the coping mechanisms this morning. I live on the beach, and I went out and I was watching the waves, and I
Mhm.
see God and nature and the beauty and
Yes.
strength, right? And I feel that. And we all have to find, I don't think, I never say what you need to do, but what I think that is good for people to find that place, that quiet place, or
Quiet place.
that place where you are communing with your higher power, because I truly believe that there's something, has to be something greater than myself, has to be, right?
And John,
Yeah,
if I can jump in, forgive me
sure,
for interrupting, but I
sure,
want to make it clear to the audience that there is no right or wrong way to communicate with that power.
right,
I believe my
Right.
belief that as many people
That's right.
that are created on this planet, that's how many lines of communication they are to that source. It's your own, it's not what anybody else tells you. You find it yourself. And for those who follow a certain way, if that works for them, that's fine. But you just don't want to feel or have people who may not follow one specific way to feel like they don't have another way.
right.
And again, the more you keep seeking, sometimes it's just like you said, just quieting your mind and
Mm,
just having a focus point. When I was in prison, right, there was this one, it was upstate New York, right, the dead of winter. There was this one tree. I don't even know if it was real or not, right? I don't care. It was this big oak tree, and in the dead of winter, wrapped around all this snow, it still had all the green leaves on it.
Mm, mm,
It was the most beautiful thing I had ever saw. And in that moment, I saw the creator. And every day after morning chow, I would go out with a cup of coffee and I would sit on a bench and I would just focus on this tree. And I would talk to the tree. And I would just quiet my mind and stare at the tree like you at the waves. I believe a really good way to connect is through nature.
mm,
That's when you really get to see the
Agree.
power of the source
Agree.
and
absolutely.
just quiet my mind from all the noise. You
Yes.
know, we wake up, you don't have to do anything to start thinking negative. All the crazy stuff that happened yesterday, all the stresses of today, all the worries of tomorrow, cut it off.
Mm.
10, 15 minutes and just center yourself.
Amen. Adrian, you want to say something?
Oh my gosh, Stephen just hit a nerve.
Uh,
I'm a nature lover also. I live in Southeast Queens still, born and raised. And Stephen, listening to the birds,
Yes.
listening to the birds does it for me. It takes
Mhm.
me there. Of course, when we're able to get away, the water is always something that's very, very healing. It's cleansing, um, uh, emotionally and spiritually, all of that, the water, even when you dream about water, that's healing and all of that. But listening to the birds for me and just breathing and just taking that in, oh my goodness, just feeling that connection,
mm,
with that life, with those other life forces, be it the birds, be it the trees, those other life forces that give us life and nurture us. 1,000% agree with you.
Hey,
Yes.
I tell you, Adrian, I mean, some of our friends, people that we know, and they say, they know me, so they say, oh no, John is going off to walk in the woods right now. Oh no, he's listening to the birds. Those things are non-negotiable for me. You know,
Yes.
those things are necessary and needed for me to get through the day. And I
Yeah.
know we all have to identify things that get us through the day and communing with nature, as
Yeah.
well as you know, talking to folks and being a part
Yes.
of other people's lives. And that has been a part of me. I talk a lot. I know a lot of people because I'm always talking, right? That's part, and we all have to know that. We have. I just want to say that we're going to stop at about noon, 12, which is in about 20 minutes or so. But I do want to. Kind of let Liz in for a second and see. I haven't been really following the chat. If there's anything that you feel that we want to address, or maybe something that you saw in the chat that you want us to address, and then I'm going to give each one of our panelists last final words. Liz?
So all of you spoke such amazing words of inspiration. So I've been posting to our website on our Faith Nut page, which is in our main navigation right now. Quotes from each one of you. Not exactly because I don't type that fast, but as close to what you said as possible. And the chat is solidly inspired by all of you, both in your commitment, your faith, but how you're letting it filter in your lives and empower you. So I think you're having a tremendous impact. So I thank you for that. We all thank you for that. I do, just as a matter of business, just want to remind everybody at the end of this that a survey is going to pop up from Zoom. And I really would love all participants to participate in the survey because it's how we know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and how we've impacted you, everybody who's listening. So please do that. I know surveys are a bummer, but they help. They help all of us. They help us help you. So thank you for that. I've also posted on our NAMI Faith and Not page the links for the national plenary sessions that as soon as we're done here, you can just click on those links and watch them, or through the main dashboard. There's an avenue there somewhere don't know where it is, but I think it's going to be easier on our website. So please do click on that and watch them because they're powerful. They're very powerful. You may not agree with everything, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. We're here to learn from each other. So, so thank you again for participating, and I'm going to let you continue. I mean, by and large, the chat is really in support and connection with what everybody is saying.
Yeah, good.
So, as I
Cool.
said, you've truly empowered our audience. So, thank you.
Very cool. Thanks, Liz. So yeah, like Liz says, yeah, this conference is going simultaneously in several different areas of the country and several different affiliates. They're all kind of doing their own thing. But there's a national um, kind of they did pre-taped speakers and stuff like that. And as Liz says, if you want to go and click on and hear that. So again, we'll go a little bit, and I'll come back on at 12:30 and take a break. But really, this is the what I feel is the meat, and I think that the interaction of us talking and sharing is, I think, really good and is really uplifting. So, in the final minutes, I kind of want uh, everybody, our panelists, to speak to what you want people to feel about spirituality. What, or say, or put it this way, let me just leave it open. Your final last words, whatever you want to talk about for the next 3 minutes of each panelist. We'll start off with Stephen.
Well, first of all, thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to you, Liz, Janice, Dawn Brown, everyone who is involved in putting this on. Thank you to my panelists, uh, Madam Speaker and Rabbi. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. You know, I love having conversations like this. I'm gonna get off the Zoom and do 50 push-ups, man. I'm pumped. I'm really pumped, you know. And thank you for everyone listening in and investing in yourselves. Very important, very important. No coincidences, you know. It's God's way of staying anonymous. You were meant to be here. There was a message. God was speaking directly to you from one of these messages that you heard today. Don't shut it out. Don't ignore it. If something tapped your spirit, go with it. We know when we know. And the last thing you want to do when you get old, I just did a workshop at Montclair State University, and I told people, like, I'm past the point of being afraid, not because I'm some tough guy, but just I know how to put things in perspective. But one of the things that still frightens me is growing old and saying, what if? What if I could have made a difference? What if I saw that child or saw that individual, knew they needed help, had the help they needed, and never gave it to them? That would haunt me.
Mm,
All here for a reason. We all have gifts. Our gifts are there's a book called Conversations with God, an Uncommon Dialogue
mm,
by Neil Donald Walsh. And it talks about he has this conversation with God, right? Down on his luck in every way possible. Bankruptcy, divorce, foreclosure, everything's going wrong. He starts writing these letters to God, and he starts having this spiritual experience where God starts answering through him through the pen. And as he realizes that he's speaking with God, he now starts asking God the age-old questions. And God says to him, you know, you were put here to remember who you are, as was stated earlier, a part of the Creator. And once you remember who you are, that higher level of consciousness, your job is to help remind others who they really are.
amen.
And it's a powerful statement. So that's what I'll say, right? Find out, remember who you are, and then go out and help remind others who they really are in whatever way, shape, or form that fits you. Thank you for having me.
Wow, thank you, Steve. I mean, powerful stuff, man. I'm glad that we are taping this because I'm going to run it back and all the quotes. I'm going to be using that. And as Rabbi said, I'm going to use. And I said, like I said this. These are my words, but no, you were great. Thank you as always, and we'll talk some more. Rabbi, would you like to say a few last words?
Thank you so much again. Uh, I want to thank also my fellow panelists, Stephen, King. Stephen, my people will be in touch with your people after this conversation. Madam Speaker, thank you so much for your inspirational words, and everyone, thank you for inviting me. I like just to end with, we have a question in the chat, and I like just to read it and maybe use that as an opportunity for me to say the last words. I will read just part of the question is, when the subject is on God, faith, and spirituality, people seem to struggle with their faith and feel a sense of loss or anger with God, or focus it and lean on it, but they do it alone. I rarely hear them talk about leaning on community through church or religious affiliation. How will you help direct them towards that to help them increase their support and faith? Um, I think that we, people who are in a position of leadership in religious organizations and in the community, doesn't need to be a religious organization, like if you have a position of leadership, the most important thing we can do is to model the conversation, just to be that the kind person, which is easier said than done, but to exemplify kindness and compassion to the other person, just to be said, I will say, I cannot talk about God. Maybe it's too big for me. Why God is doing this for you? That I don't know, but I am here for you. And just be present. We need to model our speech. We need to model what we say. The people need to see in us that healing place, and I think we can make a huge difference. And we don't have always to solve the problem. Most of the times we cannot solve it. Some issues are extremely complex. Some circumstances of people are very challenging. Some history, sometimes personal history, is difficult to undo. But we can say, I am with you in that moment. I am with you present. You know that King David, and Rabbi, some point, just to finish with some words of Psalms. We read in book of in Psalm 23, maybe all of you know it. Do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death? I fear no harm, for you are with me. The God is not solving the problems of King David. He still walks through the valley of the shadow of death. He doesn't say, now I used to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and now I don't any longer. He still walks there.
Right.
But the difference is, you are with me. I am not alone. And I think we can do the same with other people around us. I cannot take you from your valley of shadow of death. I know, but I can be with you present in that moment. I can embrace you. I can just be there for you without fixing it, without saying anything, just be there with you. And if we can model that, maybe we can bring God closer to the person who's feeling that he is struggling with this in loneliness or alone. So
Wow.
that's my last word to
Amen.
share.
Wow. Well, Rabbi, thank you again for coming. You are we brought you back by popular demand. So we thank you for
Thank you for
coming,
inviting me.
and
Thank you.
also I guess in the chat we'll put Adrian and Rabbi and Stephen your emails or your where people can get in touch with you, as well as we didn't really sell your wares, Steve, and your book and all that stuff. But we'll have people get in contact with you. Adrian, my friend, and just so proud of everything that you've done and continue to do and will continue to do for our city and for our St. Pascal crew. All right. And I just want to say that just you know, you're an inspiration as well as everyone on this panel and as Madam Speaker, we'll give you the last words.
Oh my. Um, Thank you, John. Thank you to the whole team, Janice, Liz, panelists extraordinaire, Rabbi, and Stephen. It's been such an honor and pleasure to share some time and space and faith with you this morning. I'm just so full right now in having, been a part of this panel and this sharing experience. I always welcome the opportunity to share, I always say, the real me with people because people tend to see the political, my work, that I tend to wear more so than, the person that I am, and can truly contribute more of the person that I am. But I'm very proud of the work as well. There's I'm old school in case you all didn't know or couldn't tell. My parents were from South Carolina, and we have very, very deep roots in the dirt, in the soil um, of South Carolina. I come from a long line of Baptist preachers. So to come out of a Catholic school, get the religion medal after being tortured by my peers. There was some there. I keep saying, the creator, God, the source, has such a sense of humor when it comes to his and her children. It always puts me in such a place to know that we all do have a purpose. Um, the fact that we have not figured it out, that's okay. It's all right. It's fine. But hold on to your organic self, that thing that talks to you, that tugs at you, that good thing that tugs at you within yourself. There's a song that says, if I can just help somebody along the way, then my living will not be in vain. That is what I live by. That is the heart of the work that I do in the service that I do it. And every day, my mantra, and one of my political friends, I won't say who she is, but she happens to be a borough president and a friend of mine. She has taken my phrase, but every day I wake up on purpose with a purpose. And that is intentional. Um, if I can help somebody along the way, then my living shall not be in vain. I live that on a daily basis, and I'm grateful that I was given the capacity to be able to help so many people by the funding that comes through the body that is called the City Council of New York. Um, the work that we do collectively, the bills that we have put together, the fact that I've been able to create initiatives that have changed the lives of thousands of people, being able to put people in college that have had some college credits and bring them back into school to get their degrees, to be able to take young women out of homeless shelters, giving them a start in life that they're able to raise their families, pregnant young girls, move them out of homeless shelters that may have been in domestic violence situations, move them out and give them um, a leg up by giving them a stipend for 3 years to start them on their way to take care of themselves and their babies. And many, many other things that will only be seen by the people that are affected positively by those things. I am just so grateful to have been put here and in a place that the 11-year-old that didn't want to live to see tomorrow has been able to enhance the tomorrows of so many individuals that they too themselves may not want it to see tomorrow. I am so blessed to be in a capacity to do these things. I am termed out December 31st, 2025. Out of here. But I will still move in the faith that I'm grounded in. I will still wake up every day on purpose with a purpose, moving on to the next great thing in my life that I believe is there waiting for me as this wife, mother, grandmother, and new great-grandmother. Moving on to the next space, whatever that looks like, being grateful that there are options still at this stage of life for me to be encouraged that whatever move it is, that it's going to be the right move, because I am going to continue to walk by faith and not by sight. I encourage everybody that has joined us today, that has been able to hear our stories, hear from us from our hearts. I encourage you to pull at that positive thing that is inside of you. It is there. You don't have to look any place else for that positive thing, for your power source, for your internal power source to plug you in to the great things that are in store for you. Don't look any place else, brothers and sisters, because you were born with it.
Man.
You were born
Wow.
with it.
Adrian, thank you, my friend. I love you. I want to say this also, that I thought you were going to break out in song. Adrian has an incredible voice, and she sings on Alan AME's choir,
Used
but
to.
I'm used to. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but thank you for all of your inspiration and all the panelists. We are going to be here tomorrow with three other guests, friends of mine, who are doing amazing things throughout this world, this universe, like our panelists today. Um, uh, I'm speechless right now, and that's really hard for me to be speechless, as you know, Adrian. Right? I talk a lot, but I want to say thank you. I'm gonna come back on, Liz. I think we're gonna take
Shout
a
out to
break.
Ron Comrie. We see you out there, Ron.
Ron, yes, my great friend Ron, who is happens to be Leroy Comrie's brother, Senator Leroy Comrie, and Ron and I were roommates in college. My brother, I love you. Thanks for all the people, friends, family, foes that were on this call. And again, I'll come take a break, and those who want to come back for a minute, but also link on to that link that was sent out to hear NAMI National and their speakers and what they have to say that can't compare to ours. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. But but no, so I thank you, Liz. Thank you guys. Thank you. We will be in touch. We're going to be doing more of these forums, and hopefully you guys will be a part of our NAMI Queens Nassau family. You are a part of the family now. So we'll be calling on you, Adrian and Rabbi and Stephen, to do more stuff. So we thank you. Liz, do you want to say anything? Anything as our affairs leader? Okay, I don't think Liz heard me, but anyway.
No, I did. I
Oh,
did.
oh, you did. Okay.
I was busy typing and I
Okay.
couldn't
And thank you, Liz,
do
for
two
all
things at one
that
time.
typing.
Yes, I've been updating the site as we're speaking because as I said, the deep emotions and deep motivational comments are just inspiring, and your audience has been very inspired. You've touched a lot of people today, and you'll touch more because this is recorded and it's going to live on infinitum on our website. But I'm going to post the links to this afternoon to the plenary sessions with National. As Sean said, it's they work hard on it. It's inspirational. Dawn speaking in the one today. Dawn Brown. So please do listen. And I'm going to post the links right to the homepage. It's on our FaithNet page, but whatever. So it'll be right on the homepage. So thank you. And
Thank you.
again, do the survey, please.
Yeah,
Janice,
please,
did you want to say goodbye or say anything quick?
I would just say it was so inspirational. Thank you all. That was wonderful. I feel very inspired to go out right
And
now.
and thank you guys. And tune in tomorrow. 10 o'clock. Be there, be square. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. And again, check out the link. And as again, I might come back on for a second. And but thanks again. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.